really awesome to get out in the stadium. Been a long time coming, obviously for me, not just from last fall, but 3 years out of college football. Been dreaming of that day, been anxious, been excited. So couldn't have been happier to be out on the turf in the stadium where we're going to open up the season next fall. So it was really, really exciting for me personally. I think a lot of our coaches were beyond gassed up, excited. And to be quite honest, I think all of our players were as well. We had a drill starting at 8 o'clock, and I think everybody was in the stadium lined up at 10 minutes till. So everybody was excited. Fun time to be around the kids. I would say that, typical first day, there's some things that went well, some things that didn't go well. A lot of times people say your biggest improvement is from game 1 to game 2 in the fall. I think the same thing can be said in the spring. Your biggest improvement usually is from practice 1 to practice 2. We're in limited things with just the headgear, with just the helmets on. We can't have any pads or do a lot of things that you do on the football field these first 2 days, but you can get good at fundamentals. There's a huge emphasis on communication, just getting guys to do the things right that put you in a position to win games. We really had minimal pre-snap penalties. I think there were 2 guys that were marginal if they possibly could have got called, so there wasn't any pre-snap penalties. We preach a lot around here about before you win the game, you got to stop from losing it, and one of the biggest factors into that is pre-snap penalties. Didn't have much of that. Did have some turnovers, so things we got to eradicate. We started off in the red area and kind of taught the importance of that, and that'll be a continuation now through Thursday and Saturday's practice. So really, other than that, no surprises. Stayed pretty injury free. Had one guy that might have banged his shoulder up mildly that might be out for a little bit. We're still waiting for some results on him, but other than that, it's all good to go. Open it up for some easy questions.
All right, Rob Rosenthal, you're leading off. Mark on deck. Jeremy the Hole, go ahead.
Yeah, Coach, I'm curious about the facilities. You've got, you can do practice in the stadium. You've got the grass practice fields. You've got the indoor. Do you prefer to practice in the stadium? Do you prefer to be on grass some days? How do you view that?
Yeah, I probably prefer to practice in the stadium if all possible. We ran all kinds of tests on the field, did a lot of nice things. I thought the ground crew really did a nice job of getting the field ready. A couple of our guys thought we put in new turf because it was loose and felt good on them. So yeah, during my entire time at a previous institution, I practiced every day in the stadium for 9 years basically, and won a lot of games. So I think the more you can become comfortable in your own stadium, the better you'll be. Now, obviously, you're all on one field, so there is some limitations on space. But if you handle it the right way and you manage it and you kind of maneuver your kids so that there is no cross interference, you can be one of the best places to practice.
And as far as what you've found from being in the facility for a couple months now, like, what you have in the routine of getting the players ready, getting them dressed, how are you feeling about the facilities you've inherited here?
Well, the Smith Center and the people that made this possible are absolutely game changers. This is an unbelievable building. From the time you walk in, obviously the ambiance, just the history and the character that's on the walls, but also the functionality of it. So this, if you think about it, when our players walk through that front door, they get COVID tested in the first 10 feet in the building. But after that, it's kind of been normal for them to, progress into a fueling station. So we, for us personally, we start every day at 5:30 a.m. They come in, they get COVID testing. Then we try to fuel them both hydration and with some protein, get something in their belly. We go into a short special teams meeting and then take it on the field for about 2 hours and 15 minutes. And it's very, very functional. The locker room, the way it progresses to the field, the training room, the state-of-the-art recovery. We preach to a lot to our guys about not just when the practice ends. That's just the beginning of the recovery process. So they come in and they take some cool tubs. We have a brunch waiting for them, so we feed them on the way out the door to go to their first classes. Bring them back in the evening, have some meetings on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and then they have training table that night. So we're really trying to enforce upon them. It's not just what you do on the practice field, it's all the things you do away from there. How you recover, how you take care of your body, the things you put in your belly, the things you take in and diet are going to have a huge effect on your body and its ability to perform on game days.
Thanks.
Bret, with it being your first couple practices here at Illinois, are there a couple specific things you're looking from players as far as maybe explosiveness or anything like that in these first couple practices?
Yeah, I think if they can carry what we teach them in fundamentals to the football field during the team periods, that's going to be a big part of it. Obviously, by position, there's certain things you want to see, right? You want to see receivers catch the ball. You want to see quarterbacks throw the ball. You want to see linemen block, and you want to see defenders defend. But Overall, I would say that, you're probably going to get tired of me. I'm not a cliche guy, but I do believe in the fact that if you have a very tough football team, mentally and physically, if you have a smart team, all right, that knows what it is and has the awareness out on the field, and then obviously dependable, so that they can be depended upon in great moments, to be at their best. If you have a tough, smart, dependable football team, you're going to have a very good chance to win some games. So every position is a little bit different. I love the fact I threw on the Indy tape and I saw George McDonald, who's an absolutely unbelievable football coach, just do some stuff in his individual periods that, put his players in a better position once team came. I saw Tony working with the quarterbacks and some footwork, some things that are going to allow the players to become better players once they learn how to throw a football with better consistency. I saw Aaron Henry and Ryan Walters work with our DBs on, just the mechanics of defending a football, a jump ball, a red area ball. It's just fun to me to watch our coaches coach and give them knowledge that gives them a chance to win.
Appreciate it, Bret. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Bret. Didn't see Mike Epstein, Jake Hansen. What is their availability this spring?
Who did you see?
Jake Hansen and Mike Epstein.
Yeah. Well, obviously Jake came back, but Jake literally just got back to campus Thursday of last week, maybe Thursday or Friday. We weren't even counting on him being in spring ball. So you won't see Jake throughout the spring. I've had several conversations with Mike. Mike's back in Florida, taking classes. He was working through some things medically that he had to get through, but as of right now, he's not on campus to go through spring ball. Those, I think, are the only two X factors out there. Again, Jake, he won't be involved. We didn't obviously find out he was coming back through the NCAA waiver until shortly before spring ball, and then he didn't get on camp. He didn't get to campus last week till Thursday. I think there are 9 guys total that aren't involved in drills that still haven't been medically cleared. Palcho's not out there. Several guys that still medically haven't been cleared. When you are unable to play or perform, we actually keep you in and put you through a return to play plan. So all those guys that you didn't see, I forget when you guys are out there. Yeah, they're out there during Indy, I guess. So if you weren't out there, if you were in there, they came out after the first hour. So we have a 2-hour and 15-minute practice. The first hour, they're indoors going through a workout with Tank, getting conditioning, getting all the things that they can physically done before they come out. And then the last half of practice, we allow them to watch and be around their position coaches and their players to try and learn the offensive, defensive schemes. But not only during the spring, but during the fall, that's kind of how that works with me. If you're in a position to not practice or participate full go into practice, you're going to go through a conditioning exercise away from the field, just to kind of let you know that you're not out there quite yet, and a reminder for them to stay hungry to get back out there.
And what were your conversations like with Mike? I mean, obviously he's a veteran, has dealt with injury issues. He's obviously away from the team and possibly learning some of the stuff he can in spring.
Yeah, I like Mike as much as I can like a player I've never met. I've had a lot of success recruiting St. Thomas Aquinas. So as soon as I got this job, I heard from his high school coaches right away, reached out to him. I've had several conversations with him and his family, just trying to steer him as best as possible. Whether or not he returns in the fall is strictly in his hands. I've invited him back and told him we'd love to have him be a part of the team. It's just really not in my position to comment on it, but also, put it in his hands on what he wants to do. Jake's here, looks great. All the other guys that weren't out there, everybody's progressing at a rate that I think they'll be able to join us. I would be very shocked if any of those medical guys wouldn't be able to join us pretty much full go by the time we return in June for the summer workout. So they should pretty much be full go by then.
Thanks, Bret. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Bret, I feel like you guys got a great response from reaching out to all the high schools across the state, but how important is that next step to then offer some kids? You guys have done that here locally around the Champaign area and then across the state as well.
Yeah, great question, Bret. So one of the things that I've said from day one, literally the first time I talked to Josh, is like, we got to turn these COVID rules to our advantage, right? We got to be able to put this in the best situation possible. And a decision that was made without me long before I came here was obviously the decision by Illinois High School Coach Association to not play in the fall. And then the opportunity that presented is we've got spring ball for the first time in the history of Illinois high school football. So they played their first games last week. We literally, I think I sat down and watched, we had targeted about 15 kids that we wanted to watch film on immediately. as soon as we could on Saturday morning. I think I watched our first guy literally before 6 a.m. So had a chance to watch guys and get a peek on some guys that we were close to, make moves on some of them and hold on others. Obviously, there's a whole round of kids that are playing their junior football season right now that we'd already extended offers to, and then really continue to evaluate the whole process. So, yeah, it's a fun time. It's a different time. But we've reached out to I would tell you this too, that outreach that we made to 500 high school coaches across the state has been invaluable, not only just for the resource and to reach out and have the goodwill of Illinois football in the Illinois high school system, but to be the state school, to be represented as the University of Illinois and talk to those high school coaches, and now to talk to those high school players about what we want to try to do here. And then, to have a story like Io to turn around the basketball program. And, one of the comments that we've really played up was when he made a comment to stay in his home state and change the direction of the Illinois basketball program. We've used that repeatedly. Io probably doesn't know how much we've used it as a football program to kind of share that same message. I'm looking for that Io. I'm looking for that guy in the state right now out of this 2022 class that can help us change the direction of this program for a long time.
Thanks, Bret.
Thank you. I love the
Bret, sorry, go ahead.
Brett's got 2 T. I said he's got 1 T. That.
I had a question about recruiting too. It seems like, recruits are responding well to your guys' efforts. You said, trying to make COVID work to your advantage. I saw one recruit tweet out, a bunch of screenshots of texts from like 6 guys on the staff. What level of organization goes into this effort like that?
Well, I think it's just, a combination. I couldn't be happier. You guys have heard me talk about Pat Hamilton, like just the knowledge that he possessed. He's been here a long time, but never really been the point man. He's a guy that I recognized early on. I was looking for someone like him, and obviously we joined hands and jumped in this thing together, and it's been an invaluable resource for me and for our staff. And then really, as our coaches came in, really just, hey, as football coaches, I know it's hard for us all to admit, but we all steal from one another, right? Like all these coaches that came from different places, we just pooled all the knowledge they had. Some guys were, Kevin is a very brilliant he's a guy that's always thinking ahead of the curve. Ryan Walters and what they've been able to do at Missouri. He's been with a couple staffs that have really, really recruited well. Obviously bringing Nate with us, who had been at Northern Illinois and been at Temple, and to have him pair up with Pat. Some of you guys know Pat Pearson, who had been with me. So I brought a guy in that was in the media world that had never really worked in football. He's like a little kid in a candy store. I got to kick him out of meetings because I turn around, he's trying to learn more football. I'm like, bro, stay out of here and just concentrate on what you do. But you pull in, I've really wired up a recruiting staff that's never been assembled before that I've ever been aware of. And it's a lot of different dynamics pulling in the right direction. I think I probably know what you're talking about in referencing, like we'll group attack a young man and his parents. There's always going to be some decision factor with a young man. It could be him. It could be an aunt, an uncle, a mom, a dad, a grandma, a grandpa, a cousin, a coach. It's really finding out more about that person than anybody else. And then, if they have a big game, or they have if they're a wrestler and they have a big match, or if they're a basketball player and they're entering the second round of playoffs, whatever it is, we kind of attack that moment. And I give a lot of credit to our people.
Thanks.
Yep.
Good afternoon, Coach. On Tuesday, in our 15 minutes of seeing you, which I know obviously isn't a lot in terms of your grand scheme of things in practice, you were kind of across the field with the defensive line. Is that kind of an area of emphasis for you right now in practice? Or are you trying to bounce around to the different position groups as much as you can?
Well, actually, unless my schedule was off, I actually pre-planned where I'm going to be for every period. There we had 25. When you guys were in there, there's 25 straight minutes of fundamentals. The first fundamental period, I started over with the defensive backs. Second fundamental period, I went to the offensive line. The third fundamental period, I went to the defensive line. The fourth fundamental period, I went down to watch the quarterbacks and receivers, and I stayed there and watched routes versus air. So yeah, I didn't spend any more or less time with any particular group. I just spent when you saw me. I stand out, all right? So I'm usually the biggest guy out there that's not wearing pads. We try to move around. I try to move around. we just literally, the reason I was late, we record every one of those individual drills, and what I was doing, I showed our whole staff the individual drills of every other coach. So Coach Miller works with the offensive line, but his teaching progression is really, really something awesome to watch. So I showed how he progressed through that day to get where he needed to be. George McDonald, like I said earlier, was doing some great things with our wideouts that I wanted to see everybody to see. I wanted people to see Tony, the way he was working with our quarterbacks on footwork and progression and eye progression. Got to watch Coach Patterson work with the running backs and saw the difference between maybe the skill sets or the effort level of different running backs. So it's really an unbelievable, that 25 minutes of practice is my most enjoyable time. If I was with the D-line, I was working with Coach J-Mo, just because he's a former player of mine and I want to hear him spit it. I want to hear how he teaches. It's been fun for me to hire these former coaches, and I want to see them on the grass, or on the turf, I should say, and I want to see them work. That's probably one of the more enjoyable parts of my day right there.
So I want to kind of stick with that then. You've had all these players that you've had on your staff. Why is that so enjoyable for you? Is it kind of like reliving the past for you? Like, why is that so enjoyable for you?
And no, we're not really living anything. It's more about living in the moment, to be honest. Like, so when I see Aaron Henry, I see a young man, 16 years old in Immokalee, Florida, when I offered him a scholarship. And now I see a man in his 30s who's about ready to be married, who bought his first house and is coaching like as good a DB coach as I've been around. So I love to see the progression. I get the comment, but like, no, I'm more in the moment, and to see people have success, but also to hear what I hear. So we have this thing defensively called call alignment stance key responsibility. It's called CASCAR. I learned it when I was 18 years old, and I've preached it ever since I've been coaching. And to walk into every one of our defensive meetings and to see that on the wall and make our kids understand that's how they learn, like that's really, truly enjoyable for me. And then, to be quite honest, I've known Tony Peterson for a long time, but I've never been on the same field with him as a coach. And I wanted to hear him coach. I wanted to hear him preach. And that was pretty cool. I've been with George McDonald previously for 2 weeks before he left me at the altar, but I wanted to finally see him coach and see him out there on the football field. So it's really just, it's just truly just try and enjoy the moment.
Hi, Bret. In our last Zoom with you and in our last Zoom with Tony, you both now have talked about trying to get Brandon to be more vocal, be more communicative as a leader. I'm curious if at previous stops you've had success with quarterbacks who were maybe a little more quiet, lead by example type of guys.
Yeah, it's really playing to the demeanor of them. During recruiting, you kind of have to review your past players at every position, and we're in a recruiting battle right now with a quarterback. And I was sitting talking to that quarterback we're recruiting, and I talked about my last 6 quarterbacks. So my last 6 quarterbacks, first was Scott Tolzien, was a young man from Illinois that I took from Illinois, who I think we beat out Toledo. He ended up being a multi-year starter, won 10 ball games his junior year and 11 his senior year, and was the first Big Ten championship with me. And Scott was a very quiet, deliberate, but when he talked, people listened. He wasn't a real big jabber, real big talker, but when he was supposed to talk, he spoke with authority. Volume reflects confidence, and confidence reflects your volume. So when he had to speak, he did a good job of doing that. My next quarterback was Russell Wilson, and Russell, he's a talker. He can jab to jab, but he's not really like a overly loud guy. But he would always speak when he needed to be heard, and people listened. My third quarterback after that was Joel Stave, who I had him starting as a true freshman. Got beat by Nebraska earlier in the year, and at the end of the year, he beat him 70-20 or whatever it was. So he definitely learned how to speak better as we go. My next quarterback was Brandon Allen at Arkansas, who still is in the NFL. Kind of another quiet demeanor guy, but can definitely speak when he has to. And then Austin Allen, his little brother, got a shot in the league and was, again, probably more of a little boisterous guy. And now he's my 6th. Whoever this 6th quarterback is has got to be able to play the role that he's given. I know BP is not like in his major. It's not a part of what he just naturally does. But for us to grow as men, you have to get more out of your comfort zone, and that's definitely what we're asking him to do. And I think yesterday or Tuesday was a step in the right direction.
One of the also things I wanted to hit with you is I counted 21 players on your spring roster that are either up or down 10 pounds from what they were listed this past fall. And I was curious if you could comment on how these guys are reacting and maybe on the same page with Tank on what plan they have for him as they go into this spring and then into the next fall.
You know, Tank has got Tank and Jeremy in our training room have got a lot of different ways to measure things out. So the easy way, obviously, is just the pure pounds. But Tank did a measurement device in Jeremy where I think Isaiah Gay put on 17 pounds of lean muscle mass and lost 3 pounds of body fat. And like you can literally see some of these guys if you really truly got up close to Velo, like he totally has changed his body as well. Like there's a lot of guys. You know, Tank's doing a lot of good things with the guys. Not doing much with me. I still look the wrong way, but he is really. I think, especially in those mid-level to big guys up front, have really done a nice job. And it's only been 8 weeks, to be quite honest, 7 because we used the last week to taper. So we'll get through this 5 weeks right now, and it's absolutely essential that these guys learn recovery, right? So it's not recovery for tomorrow's practice; it's recovery for 4 weeks from now, when we need to be at our best in our final week of spring ball. And I think they're beginning to understand that, but that's the big point of emphasis right now.
Thank you, Bret. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, just a heads up, we've got about 4 or 5 minutes left. So go ahead, Gabby.
Hey, Bret, I know
Hey,
you've
Gabby.
talked in another press conference, but what's the status on your wife and kids being in Champaign, and like where are they at right now?
Great question. That is, they actually on Friday they're coming in full go. So we've been kind of living vicariously through FaceTimes and Zooms, and very, very excited for Friday. They're going to be here hopefully Friday about 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and we'll move into our. We bought a lot here. We've designed a home. Haven't dug the hole yet, but we should do that in about the next week or two, and then it'll take about a year to build that baby up, and then we'll move from our rental home into that residence here in Champaign. I couldn't be more excited for them to get here Friday.
What has it been like just being away from them? Because I know obviously you've talked a lot about how important your family is to you, and obviously that's such a big thing. So what has it been like, and how have you guys kind of just like kept that, connection?
Well, it's been extremely difficult. My wife knows I get a little emotional at times. So like once in a while, my oldest especially, she'll just say, I want to talk to daddy, or I miss daddy, or in the middle of the night or whatever. So those have been stories that I don't like to hear. But I set a record for FaceTimes calling home, and usually try to do that as best I can. But I give a lot of credit to my wife. She amazes me every day, but what she's done over the last 2.5 months has been absolutely essential for our family. So give her all the credit in the world, and looking forward to joining in on Friday with her hand. And my mother-in-law has been awesome as well. So it's really been kind of a family affair to get where we are. But I'm very, very excited for Saturday or Friday, believe me.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bret, I know you said that, you're kind of just looking at the fundamentals in the early stages of spring. Where do you kind of draw the line between, just seeing guys improve and start to see some players step up? I know the fall will probably be a little more of those position battles, but do you kind of want to see that out of some of the guys this spring that can kind of maybe, start to solidify themselves into a starting role?
Absolutely, Nico. I think, again, you can't overestimate these first 2 days are in helmets only. So you can't, the game of football is played at a physicality level that you just can't emulate when you don't have pads on. So we'll get pads on Saturday. I've got the script laid out where we're going to be able to, test them in some moments that make them strain and compete against one another. We'll do some drills that we're not going to live scrimmage that first day, but we're going to be very physical. We're going to demand on them certain things. We'll be good against good. We're not going to be ones against twos or any of that stuff. It's going to be good against good, or the people that we feel is the best at their position going against the best. And again, competition brings the best out of people. So I would say as early as Saturday, we're going to stress them and put them in those moments where you want them to come out. But I would tell you, even just yesterday, there were guys that kind of separated themselves from drill work we've seen here the first 8 weeks to football work we saw on Tuesday. And I think that'll continue to be the case here as we move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Bret, I know we're just 2 days into this, but you laid out a pretty intensive schedule for us last week as far as what you wanted to do with spring ball. At this point, how have you liked the way, based on what these first 2 practices have shown, how do you like the way that's progressing? Are there any adjustments you're considering making, or have things gone pretty much according to plan for you?
No, Colin, it's absolutely every day is an assessment. I literally every day the last thing I do before I leave the building is write down what I liked about that day and what I didn't like. And today is Wednesday. We've already adjusted what we'll do next Monday, knowing how we can kind of adjust it and tweak it. Again, this COVID world, because our kids are in Zoom meetings for academics, we can kind of do some things unrealistic to what you'd normally be able to do. So we've adjusted Monday so that we'll give them a little bit longer break time in the middle so that we can just, again, we can make them understand it's about how they recover. We didn't give them enough window to eat as much as we'd like to have them get in them. So I gave them an extra half-hour time in the middle of their routine, which will allow us to stagger a little better. It will allow us to feed them more effectively, and it'll be better for their overall recovery. So Tuesday's practice, just one down. I'm waiting to see what tomorrow's look like. After 2 practices, we'll be able to adjust that schedule a little bit. But absolutely, I think if you're not adjusting, you're not adapting, you're probably going to be going backwards. So we literally adjust and adapt every day.